It's wrong. Whoever, I'm telling you, I probably am the most critical, and y'all know going into this, I was going to be the most critical of the People Summit out of anybody else here. And no, it's actually not establishment at all. For those of you who have heard that the indigenous people have not been represented at all, that's not true. They had a whole 10 to 15 minute speech yesterday about indigenous rights and how important the indigenous are to this country. The Green Party has a table at the People Summit, by the way, and has been giving as much, as far as media is concerned, as much equal media attention as the progressive Democrats have. They have been strongly critical of the Democratic establishment. They have not been touting Russian arguments. They have not, or the Russian argument. They have not been touting pro candidate nonsense. It's been all policies, all issues that afflict all of us, and it's been good. It's been a very powerful experience. Most of the people here are extremely progressive, and I'm surprised. I was actually pretty surprised at how progressive it was. And I've said that a lot since I've been here. They've allowed the Progressive Independent Party is here. The who else is here? Draft Bernie is here. It's people are, as far as like the representation of the participants, other than the people who are obviously personally invited here, there has been equal representation of anyone who is asked to be represented. If you wanted a booth here and you got in early enough to request a booth, you would have gotten one. Really, there's not been any complaints by anybody. The Green Party here said they were perfectly satisfied. They said they wish they would have gotten on an earlier panel, but it was just something like you had to be personally invited to. So, of course, they don't have a network to get to those people. But, so, I honestly have no complaints thus far, except for my only complaints are they didn't let us drink for that long. We only got 2 drinking tickets. So, but outside of that, it is what it is. Well, I was very impressed with everybody, with Nina, with Jane, with the speakers. Apparently Van gave a powerful speech. I missed it, but I'm going to get a copy of it and I'll post it. So for those of you who have read that this People Summit is extremely establishment, that is the furthest thing from the truth. I've seen one. I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen one establishment media personality, but outside of that, no. And if you might even think that person may be establishment, they don't even get a platform here. So can't front. I'll keep it hot. If it was super establishment, I will tell you. I'll be the first one to tell you. I was the first. While I was in the Women's March, I was telling you all about the Women's March. If I feel like something is establishment, then I'll be the first one to let you know, and I'll be the first one to call it out. But it has not been thus far. I mean, of course, we still have a day and a half to go, but from what we witnessed, it's been a great, actually. Nobody has had their message suppressed while they were here. The Draft Bernie Party has been able to talk about what they would like to talk about with anybody they would like to talk about it with. Same thing with the Green Party. They have a booth distributing out information, and all types of people. Tim, you want to come say hi real quick? You want to say hi? Just what? You want to give them a little peace sign? Just give a little photo bomb.
Hey people, how you doing? Good to see you.
Tim, yeah, Tim, they can see you.
There you go.
Tim been busy, y'all. He been busy.
What's up, people? How you doing?
Yeah, they can't hear you. Live stream.
This is my mic right now?
Yeah, this is a mic. Yeah.
What up? Progressive people out there. My progressive friends. Niko's shaking all these hands. I think he's running for something, man.
Nah.
He's running for something.
Nah, Tim's too popular out here. He got to keep running. Where you about to head to now? You going to try to find a spot? Yeah. Let me know, man. All right. Back to, hey, somebody said keep your cornbread, bruh. But, so, now that we have our audience here, I would like to talk to you about what I have observed. Some positive observations since I've been here. So, when we came here, I was expecting to see Bernie everywhere. Bernie pictures, Bernie Bernie. That's, it's a People's Summit. That's how it was last year. However, that was not the case. In fact, it was a person that I was kind of not expecting to have her face everywhere. It was Jane. For those of you who don't know, she officially launched her Sanders Institute, which is a policy crafting institution. And it's her policy crafting institution. And it's huge. She announced it, but she did it 3 days before this event. She's been walking around here, shaking hand after hand after hand, networking, taking pictures with everybody. She's been walking around here with Nina. Nina, obviously, as you all know, has her own show now. She's been put into the spotlight as well. But it appears that Jane has actually been keeping herself in the spotlight. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Never did anything of that. I was happy. Also, Jane's probably in the best shape that I've ever seen her in. Looking amazing. And it was whatever. Kind of like, I was curious about it, but I didn't really question it until I actually spoke to someone who was Bernie's driver. And just for anonymity purposes, I'm not going to relinquish his name, but I spoke to a Bernie Sanders driver from the Unity route, the Unity tour. He did an amazing job spelling out the details of his interactions with not only Bernie, but how Bernie interacted with his staff and how Bernie interacted with Mr. Perez. And it wasn't exactly how you would think. They take 2 separate cars to every speech. They don't like each other. He was very explicit in that. He's like, they don't like each other. So the idea that Bernie is trying to play nice, is essentially, or get in good with the Democratic Party, is kind of, for me, been thrown out of the window. Because, like, if that was the case, I feel like he would be probably more cordial, more friendly, but that wasn't it. And so and then, like, well, that's interesting. So maybe he's not trying to run, but why is he trying to use this spotlight? Then I asked him another question that a lot of people probably haven't thought about asking, but given what I had been observing around here at the People's Summit, I said, hey, has Jane been speaking at the Unity Tours? Yeah, she has. We don't know, because CNN has gone out of their way, MSNBC has gone out of their way, and all the other establishment media sources have been going out of their way to suppress her speeches. But Jane has been as active, if not more active, in the political arena as far as public relations is concerned than Bernie has. They actually just went on an international tour together, which, like, Bernie's a senator from Vermont. Why is he going on an international tour? Why are you going on international meet and greets? So once again, I'm observing and I'm looking. And then when we have, at the end of the night, we're having like the first, I guess, session of speeches, if you will. And Jane is the headliner. Her and Nina up on the stage. They have their speech. Nina's ripping into the Democratic Party. Beautiful to watch, by the way. Nina was up there in a dress and some high top Chuck Taylors. It was awesome. But so I Google, because I'm trying to understand what this tour is about, the international tour, because Jane has spoke about it briefly. But the first thing that came up on Google when I searched Bernie Sanders, Jane Sanders International Tour, first thing that comes up, first thing available. What's up, man? How you doing, Wolf?
Good to see you.
But the first thing that came up was, by the way, y'all, he's running in Chicago. But the first thing that came up was that the FBI probe into Jane Sanders. It was like the most random attack. But then when you think of the timing, when the attack first came out, it was around the time of the Unity Tour. And it was a stipulation that Jane was allowed to speak in the tour. And she has been speaking. And they have been receiving her extremely well. And her speeches have been extremely well prepared. And so I'm thinking, why are they? So like I told you all, we have to notice the way that we figure out things in politics. The reason we were able to figure out that Cory Booker was running from the moment he gave that speech at the Democratic National Convention is because you look at patterns. There are certain patterns in politics. you don't stay in the spotlight in these ways that Bernie, Jane, Tulsi, Nina, and otherwise have, unless you have a plan going forward as to how to use that spotlight. Bernie and Jane don't need any more money. Obviously, they could have. If they really wanted money, they could have made a lot of it along the way. Jane doesn't need the Sanders Institute. If this could have been something that she has done because she's actually pretty good at politics. She's pretty good at policy. She's already good. Obviously, she wouldn't be able to do this if she wasn't. Obviously, Bernie is busy in the Senate. So, when you think of the networking that Jane has been doing, walking around here with Nina, the fact that Bernie isn't even showing up until today, he hasn't even arrived yet. It's been Jane on panels, Jane speaking to people taking pictures at the Sanders Institute booth with Jane speaking at the event in the theater yesterday. It's been all about Jane. The rhetoric that has been used at this summit has been Jane and Bernie. It usually, of course, as you all know, it's been Bernie, Jane. But at this People's Summit, it's been Jane, Bernie, Jane, and Bernie, Jane, they. Even when they speak about his past involvement with the election, they always speak of them as they when they're referring to Bernie Sanders, even if Jane wasn't necessarily involved in it. So when you combine her networking, her staying in the spotlight, Nina staying in the spotlight, Nina and Jane pretty much being the controllers and the I guess what you would say the energy moderators, the political moderators of this event, combined with the fact that Jane has been speaking at this unity tour, but more so coupled with the fact that we didn't know that Jane was speaking at this unity tour, that CNN and MSNBC has been suppressing this, combined with the fact that if you Google, the international tour or anything with Jane, if you Google it, they talk about the probe that she had, the FBI probe, and it wasn't an FBI probe, it was an IRS thing, and nothing was founded. So, but it's a slander article, a smear article that seemingly came out of nowhere, very similarly to the Tulsi Gabbard article that came out when there were talks of her running for president. Same thing that we've seen with Bernie Sanders when they tried to slander him when he was getting too much popularity. Because like I've always told you all, first is suppression. When they can't suppress you anymore, they have to smear you. And when they can't smear you anymore, they have to either beat you or co-opt you. And just listening to how Jane has been speaking, I doubt they've co-opted her. I know Jane. She's pretty hard to co-opt. She didn't like 9/10 of Bernie's staff while he was running, and she made this pretty clear. So I think that we are looking at the beginning stages of a Jane Sanders 2020. And I think that Nina Turner, if Nina decides not to run, which I don't think she will, but I think that Nina Turner is going to be her running mate if she wins the Democratic primary, which is why Nina Turner has gone out of her way to stay in the spotlight. She has a show. She has her own booth at the People's Summit. Her first interview is none other than Bernie Sanders. But she's also doing an interview with Jane Sanders, obviously. But this summit, I would say, and Karen's here, she's with me. I see your comment. But I'm pretty sure it's been almost just as much about Nina as it has about Jane. And like this much about Bernie, which was weird. Nobody was really expecting that. And Jane has been opening and receptive to everyone who has tried to talk to her about whatever. And same thing with Nina. They're open. They're not rejecting anybody because they may be Green Party or Independent Party or whatever. I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's what we're. If you look at all the observations, look at the patterns that we've seen before, and think about how much of an advantage Jane has going in. Like the only problem. Put it like this: what would be the main? Because Jane's a leader. She's been proven. She ran a college, so she's a leader. She's charismatic. People loved her. I mean, I'm with Jane. It was more I'm with Jane things around, and I'm with her. So what would be the only thing that would stop her from being considered a president? They're gonna be like, well, Jane doesn't understand policy or how policy works. She doesn't understand how to make effective policy. What do you do to solve that issue? I don't know. Maybe start a Sanders Institute where all you do is work on policy. Maybe, probably, maybe. So most importantly, I think this is probably what we could see from this. Obviously, Bernie Sanders would be the first husband. Yeah, that's cool. Like, if there was ever going to be a perfect first husband, like, this would be the best first family we've ever seen. Like, perfect. The idea of what America was supposed to be would be this family. They're not a perfect family. Bernie has his past, just like Jane has hers, but they worked through, they grew together, and they united both of their families. And that's the American story. Bernie started out with nothing, working his way up to doing what he believed, and now he's receiving it really late, the credibility that he deserves for all the work that he's put in thus far for civil rights and, you know, human rights and politics in general. But if you think about this, Jane being, first of all, for those of you who don't know, Jane is more cutthroat than Bernie. I mean, most people's wives are. Like, Michelle was more cutthroat than Obama, for those of you who do not know. So that's why a lot of people said it was a common sentiment that Michelle Obama won Barack the election the second time. But if she runs and wins, and if she wins the nomination and she wins the general election, do y'all think Bernie Sanders leaves the Senate? Probably not. He's probably going to be doing the same thing he's doing now, but using obviously his galvanization, plus Jane bringing in, I hate to say that, but plus Jane bringing in the white woman base, the Hillary base, if you will, and galvanizing everyone. Jane plus Bernie, you know, and then bringing everybody together. Because no matter if you're progressive independent party, draft Bernie party, at the end of the day, if Jane and Bernie have a chance to do something we've seen that's unprecedented in politics, I can guarantee it will work out where everybody's united. So I think that what we'll see is Bernie stay in the Senate, advocating and fighting for all of her policies. I think we see Jane run. I think we see Nina as her VP. They've been close. They've been staying close. They've been making multiple appearances together. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I know people, I actually politically, I would love to see Nina run, but I'm also a realist, and I'm also real I'm a realist when it comes to the state of our country and how we view Black people, Black women, and others who are unapologetically Black. And unfortunately, we are not in a stage where she could win it in a primary, but I don't think we're in a stage where she could win it in the general. It's just, we know that there are a lot of people who don't like Black people out there already. And we know that recently, as it's come out, that there are even a lot of racist liberals who don't like that. That don't like Black people being unapologetically Black, fighting against the establishment, rearing against the Democratic establishment. They think we should be on our knees thanking them. So it wouldn't only be the Democratic Party trying to stop that. We wouldn't have to only compete with the racists and the people who are closet racists and don't realize they're racist, but also the neoliberals who want us groveling to them, not working side by side them. So I think that's what we're leaning towards. I think that's what we're fighting for. And I think that's what we're seeing in developments. It's pretty much, it's for those of you who went to the DNC convention, but it's more positive, obviously, but it's very similar in the sense that, remember, it was a coronation ceremony for Hillary, and everybody kind of knew who they were speaking about. We need to be by her. We need to Hillary. When she wins, when she does this, when she goes. It's been the same thing, but with Jane. Jane has been doing this. Jane's going to do this. Jane was with Bernie with this. Jane was on tour with Bernie doing that. Jane and the Sanders Institute. We're going to be doing something about Sanders. And then, like, Bernie's coming to speak, but, like, and of course he's the headliner. It's Bernie. It's still Bernie. But I honestly think it's Jane. And I think, and people can say what they want to about this, but I'm objective. If Jane runs under the Democratic Party, of course, I would unequivocally support her. I would never put up with anybody ever saying a negative word about that woman. That woman is one of the only reasons you all know who I am. Whenever everybody would not take me seriously in North Carolina when I was trying to organize for the Bernie Sanders campaign, she took me in at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, called me over, hugged me, told me, like, you're doing such an amazing job. calls Bernie up, Bernie, honey, you need to meet this guy. That's the only reason that we were able to get, we made the contact. But when I had the meeting with him, the private meeting in Greensboro, and we were able to move forward and do amazing things together. And when I was telling her about this, I was tearing up. She starts tearing up because obviously she remembers too. And I'm just, telling her thank you. And, the first thing she said, she told me, she's like, thank you, Niko. Thank you so much. And I'm going to tell Bernie, I'm going to tell him, but just know he's grateful. And if all of this does in fact come into fruition, and as you all know, I have a pretty good track record when it comes to predicting outcomes of political choices, if you will. It would honestly explain why Bernie Sanders decided to do the unity tour with Tom Perez, why they would still want to stay in good graces with the Democratic Party, because I'm going to be honest with you, I work with at least with the Green Party, the Democratic Party. The Green Party isn't prepared yet. Hopefully they will be prepared by 2020, but they're not prepared yet. And the Democratic Party is in the Republican Party. It's making it harder and harder and harder to give anyone a platform going forward. So right now, I don't know who I would trust to run Democratic ticket, but if it was Jane Sanders, I would put my heart and soul behind that campaign and make sure that Jane Sanders won. And it would explain why Bernie Sanders has played nice. And it may be, I know Bernie. Bernie's an extremely smart political strategist, and he's also not stupid. There is a great chance that he knew that they were going to coronate Hillary. No matter what he did, no matter how many times he won in the count at the convention, he knew that they were going to coronate her. There's a strong possibility that they had started planning this a long time ago. And yeah, he was going to continue to fight, but he had to make sure that he doesn't obstruct Jane's chances of running going forward, because they're in a peculiar situation. For those of you who do not know, Vermont is a state that you don't register Democrat or Republican. So if you don't register Democrat or Republican, you are independent as far as the national scale is concerned. So to register and run under the Democratic Party, you obviously have to be approved to do so. And if they think that you are a threat, or you don't represent the ideals of the Democratic Party, or you're not actually a Democrat, or if you're married to somebody who's acting like that, they can push you out of the Democratic Party. It was a threat that they constantly use against Bernie so that he didn't misbehave during the convention. So because they're in that particular situation, that peculiar situation in Vermont, where Jane technically can't officially register for anything, so they can keep her out if Bernie misbehaves. But right now, they need Bernie. So for those of you who are like, he's sheepdogging who? They're paying for a free tour. They're paying for a free tour for Bernie and Jane. And so, like I said, I think that if this all comes into fruition, then we would have a few questions answered. Why Bernie would be, even for 5 seconds that he usually does, touting the Russian rhetoric, because he only does it for literally 5 seconds before he says, yeah, but it's the Democratic Party fault that they lost. So don't ever get that twisted. The same thing with the Assad situation. He'll say, yeah, maybe Assad's a war criminal, but we don't need to go to war because, we have our own problems. We don't need to kill more innocent people. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it would explain, well, of course, we're not going to know now. I would keep an eye out on Jane. I would keep an eye out on the Sanders Institute. I would keep an eye out on the success of both of those. I would start actively looking for Jane's speeches. I would start listening, because we all know there are certain, there are tells in speeches when someone wants to run. And obviously, like I told you all, with the Cory Booker speech for DNC convention, I tweeted in Facebook immediately, yeah, Cory Booker's running for president. That was easy. Like, you can know. It's very easy to realize it. So, if we start seeing a rapid success with the Sanders Institute, with Jane behind it, obviously, and you start seeing Jane and Bernie speaking, Jane speaking by herself a lot more now. Jane is on, like I said, on the Unity Tour with Bernie. Jane has not mentioned Russia one time. Jane has not mentioned Donald Trump one time. Jane has not mentioned the Democratic Party in a positive light one time. She's been firm. She's been, been firm in the fact that she's going to be advocating for policies, and that's it. And it's looking like we might see a comeback kid. It's looking like it. Like I said, I was sold whenever I saw they wrote a smear article about her. That was that's like the first thing. Whenever I see a major media source writing a smear article, I'm usually like, oh, I'm gonna go find that person and figure out everything I can to help them, because obviously they're hurting the establishment. If Jane wasn't going to do anything, or at least if there wasn't that fear, if it was never discussed, there wouldn't be a smear article about her. And it's not about Bernie and Jane. It's about Jane specifically, because obviously they know they can't really say anything to stop Bernie's movement. Bernie's Bernie. Bernie's gonna, if he ran again, he would win. And all y'all saying, I hate Bernie, guess what y'all would be voting for? I'm sorry. I'm not stupid. Like, y'all just had your heart broken by your ex-boyfriend, and y'all so upset because you can't believe he left you. He was just like rode off on a motorcycle. He just said, I can't tell you where I'm going, but I gotta go. But I promise I'll come back. And then y'all like, but don't do it. Don't do it. That's what y'all like right now. Y'all like you got your heart broken by your boyfriend. But don't worry, he's gonna be riding back after he rode off into the sunset. He came back with the plan. And if he's doing what I think if what he's doing looks anything like this summit, then I'm all for it. First of all, and if Jane is any, I mean, like I said, this is, I love Jane Sanders. I have no idea. It's like I tell you, there's a few people in my life that I don't let anyone talk negative about. Jane Sanders is one of those people. I don't care if but she hurt, don't know, because you're wrong and you're misinformed and you're uninformed. Don't speak on something you can't. If you can't get facts, don't speak on Jane Sanders' name. And none of you can, because you have to, I'm just sorry. That's not, that woman believes in you all more than you all believe in yourselves. And that woman is out here fighting every single day. She could be with her grandkids. She could be relaxing. She could be spending the last, let's be real, like the last 15, 20 years with her husband, enjoying life and looking back all the greatness all the great things they've already done. But instead she's here, Bernie's still here, fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And I'm like, bro, go relax. No, he's still fighting for you all. So I always encourage you all, if you have an issue with Bernie or even Jane going forward, argue the policies, argue the facts, always attack the facts. But if you know that the person's intentions are good and genuine, which with Bernie, we can obviously tell, given the extensive history of good intentions and, being arrested by cops for fighting for civil rights and probably got no credit for it whatsoever. People even tried to discredit him. Okay. Then understand you may not agree with everything everybody says, but I'm sorry, the left, y'all need a leader. Y'all not good at self-management. Y'all all think all of your issues are too important. Like LGBTQ, black people, everybody else, women. Oh no, we have to have our issues dealt with first. Oh, we have to have our issues dealt with. No, I'm sorry. Until we can find someone who can get our issues on the table, and who at least represents the majority of what we believe and believe that all of us should at least have a seat at the table. We have to put somebody in office, and this is just the left, because it's a different psychology than the right. The right have tradition to build themselves upon. The right has history to build themselves upon, although the history is of racist, but it is. They look like each other. They have the same interests. Our diversity is extremely helpful in politics, but our diversity is ultimately what kills us. And until we get a seat at the table, and until we get someone who can get us that seat at that table, we're going to be continuing to tear ourselves apart. We're going to continue to argue over whose issues are most important. So, if Jane ran, yeah, I'm voting for it. That's not a question in my mind. Jane would have to shoot somebody in the street, and even still, I would go up to Jane like, "What she do to you, Jane? What she do to you? Why she make you act like that?" Because that woman has never said a positive word about the Democratic Party. And if you have heard something about her, I would love to hear about it. Post it down here. Never said a positive word about the Democratic Party. When have you ever heard Jane mention Trump's name? When has she ever touted the rhetoric with Russia? Right now, Bernie is taking a lot of bruises, so she doesn't have to. And you're not going to hear her say shit about Russia. You're going to hear her say anything about Donald Trump. Because she's listening to us. As all of you know, Jane is friends with all of us on Facebook. She's paying attention to us. She's looking at what we want. She's looking at what we need. And by the way, she added everybody on Facebook around the same time as the Unity Tour, around the same time that the smear article was written about her. No, sure, it's a coincidence. But I legitimately think that she's going to be running for office. I legitimately think that Nina Turner is going to be her running mate. And I legitimately think that they would destroy anyone that they go up against. So, and of course, always keep your options open. I'm not telling you to vote for it, but I'm telling you who you would end up voting for in the end. I understand political psychology. You all would vote for Jane Sanders. Because that woman they have nothing on her. They can't, like with Bernie, how they tried to take bills that he's voted on and like invent ways that he was trying to screw us. Like, they don't even have that with Jane. They can't call Jane a sexist. You call Jane a racist, then you're a sexist. That's a Hillary logic. She's an educator. Like, there's not. I mean, obviously she's wife to one of the most brilliant politicians in political history. So just accept it. I'm sorry, y'all can say what you want to. I'm not saying like, oh, don't dim exit, don't do anything. No, keep the Democratic Party on their toes. And no, I would prefer you all dim exit, because you know what? If Jane Sanders is up there and they realize she's the great white woman hope, guess what they're gonna do? Oh, we better start acting right. And they're like, oh, but it's different with Bernie. Yeah, but Bernie has only called a couple people lose their jobs. And more people losing their jobs over time. And when you're talking about 4 years down the line, there's a lot of people losing their jobs right now who are going to want their jobs back and going to want to have a job in the future. When they go through this little 4-year drought that a lot of them have been going through, they want their power and influence back. They will suck it up. They were going to try to obstruct her at every turn, which is why it's good that Bernie Sanders would still be in the Senate. But be very clear. If y'all want to win this election, because y'all say dim exit, but at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is still going to be a problem. Because there should never be a party that corrupt. Period. So, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Obviously, please like and share the video. And always remember, find your balance. Peace.